Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Rama Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Prabhupada
Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada
Jai
Jai Gaura Haribo 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 Haribo
Jai
Jai Gaura Haribo 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 Haribo
Prabhupada ki jai. So,
Should I put this guitar here or?
yeah, put it somewhere where it's safe. I'm not going to knock it over. So we should speak a little bit now about Krishna. So any specific topics?
Just a moment. Netko treba prevod na Madri? Karolina. Džani vas ćeš ti prevoditi? Može. Hoćete Madri sjest tamo ili nek Džani vas sjedne tu ili nekako da budete blizu?
Translation.
Da.
Yes, I will try.
Okay.
Madri,
Oj,
hoćeš onda ti ovdje sjesti tu
može?
ili kako ćeš?
Yeah, Madri needs translation. So.
Please. Znaš šta, hoćeš ti ovdje sjesti?
Nema problema, reci gdje.
Tu.
Ok.
Okay.
Ivana,
This is free.
daš mi ovaj stolac da stavim mobitel?
Yes.
Stavim tu. To je tu ispred mene. Da, dobro.
Can't see me.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you can see me. That's going on which Facebook page?
Bhakti Yoga Center.
Bhakti Yoga Center. Okay, good. Okay, so any specific topics I should talk about? Or you questions? One thing that's nice is devotees can ask questions about life, about Krishna consciousness, about me, about how I came to Krishna consciousness, about Prabhupada, so many different subject matters. How did I... You mean this time or in the beginning?
No.
How did I come to be in Slovenia?
In general.
Okay, many, many years ago, before you were born. So, first time I came to Slovenia was 1997. Is that before you were born?
1997.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a compliment. I was born 84?
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know that.
86.
Anyway, so I thought it was before you were born. So, first time was 1997. And what happened was that there was a crisis in management here in the temple. And the temple, you've probably been to the Ljubljana temple. No, they haven't been to the Ljubljana temple. It's right in the center of the city. Big, big temple. It was previously the headquarters of the German SS. And there's a statue of a naked man right outside the temple. Because this man had escaped from the German SS. And he didn't have his clothes on when he escaped. Anyway, so fantastic facility right in the middle of Ljubljana. So I was called to help there because the temple, there was a crisis in management, and basically everyone had left the temple. It was the middle of the winter. And they didn't have enough money to heat the temple. Not that I was going to pay for it, but anyway, they didn't have enough money to heat the temple, so I spent January, February, some time in Ljubljana bringing the devotees back, because there was the crisis of faith. A lot of devotees had a crisis of faith. You know about that, right? And I'm bringing the devotees back and reestablished the temple, and now the temple has a very successful temple. There's like 50 devotees in the temple. On Sunday, they get hundreds of people coming. And that's how I got involved. And then I was the what's called the GBC. GBC means the representative of the governing body council, which is an international council that regulates the different areas. I used to be the GBC of Croatia too. There's a whole story about that. I'm not going to talk about. But anyway, so and things were running quite well when I was. And Sundar was the temple president in Zagreb at that point. And we were really booming at that particular point. But for one reason or other, which is not important. So then I started going on a regular basis, spending a lot of time in Slovenia. And then different places, Slovenia, then Croatia. Then I took responsibility for Croatia years ago. And then I took responsibility for Bosnia and then Serbia, which I'm no longer managerially responsible for those places, except for Slovenia to a certain extent right now. So that's how I got involved in Slovenia. So I'm quite familiar with the area around here. It's definitely not my first visit. And I know Sundarananda for many, many years. You know, we're old friends. And very close to Sachinanda Maharaj and all the devotees actually in the area. We have devotees here who are visiting from other devotees than yourselves who came tonight, from Croatia and from Serbia right now. Nobody came from Bosnia because they're working right now. Some disciples or people in Bosnia. So that's how I became involved, and I like the area very much because the people are very nice in this area. And this whole area, very much open to Krishna consciousness and self-realization, and it's a very civilized area. I come from a country that's not so civilized. America. Especially now that our past president married a Slovenian girl. So, you know, Melania. So, actually, I feel much more civilized here than I do in America. You know, people, it's just nice, and the people are open. A lot of young people open to Krishna consciousness, and it's enjoyable being here. And people like nature here, which is very good. It's a very much ecologically oriented type of area, more than practically anywhere else in the world. And it's just nice, what can I say? So that's why I'm here.
Nice.
And I plan, you know, this is the first time in a year and a half I've been able to visit here, because of the restrictions in traveling. But normally I'm coming at least twice a year, if not more.
But where do you spend the most of your time?
Before COVID, all over the world. I have areas of responsibility in the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, all over the Southeast United States, other places in Europe too, besides this. I mean, a lot of people in Finland, Sweden, and actually we have a lot of my Swedish followers who are actually here, students who are actually here right now visiting us. And so I plan on increasing my preaching as much as I'm allowed to do because of the crisis. Right now, Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji are completely locked down. You know, they took the opposite tact in dealing with COVID. It's a very short-term type of situation. It wasn't intelligent of them. Instead of just opening up and allowing people to be vaccinated or allowing people to get the disease, like you all did, and we did in America too. They are locked down, and they'll continue to be locked down, at least probably till next year, mid-22. So I think in general, Europe did the right thing, and America did the right thing as far as COVID is concerned. I mean, people are going to get sick, and that's life. And you just go on, you got to go on in life. You can't just keep locking the whole country down. So that's so right now for the last year and a half, I've been pretty much trapped in America because I haven't been able to go anywhere. But now that everything's open and I'm vaccinated, you know, then I'll travel. Can't go. You should spend a lot of time in India. India is quite dangerous right now, and they won't even allow anyone who's not an Indian citizen or resident to go there at this point because of the COVID crisis. You know, they have this what's called the Delta variant there, and so can't go there. So I'm quite restricted. So that's my, and as far as my own history, I mean, I think that might be interesting for all you who haven't heard
Yes, of
before.
course.
Is that I first came in contact with Krishna consciousness in 1968. And the contact I had with Krishna consciousness was hearing Prabhupada on the radio. And as you probably know, there's this thing called the Bhakti Lata Bija. You may not have heard this expression before, but that means the seed of a creeper of devotion, and that's implanted in one's heart when one hears from a pure devotee like Prabhupada. So when I heard from Prabhupada in 1968 on the radio, there was an album he recorded called the Happening album. My whole life changed.
You heard him sing?
Happening, yeah, I heard him sing. Sing Hare Krishna, of course. Not my sweet Lord, but anyway, he sang Hare Krishna. And as soon as that transcendental sound vibration entered into my heart, I sort of lost interest in everything else. Traumatic experience. So I was a university student at that time, and I was studying science. So as soon as I heard that, I was an engineer, you know, mathematics and all that other nice stuff. So as soon as I heard that, I sort of lost interest in science. Started studying psychology instead, and even drama.
Really?
Yeah, I took some drama courses. I was a little shocked by the drama courses because the people didn't exactly follow the regulator principles, especially the drama students. I remember going to some parties after plays and just walking into the party and nobody was wearing clothes, and it was a little shocking for me. I'm sure you may have seen that in amongst the actors in any country that are like that. They tend to be more liberal than anywhere else.
Quite liberal.
Yeah. So then they don't do stuff like that. But this is a very reputable repertory group at a university. And they were really loose. And even the professor was smoking ganja and everything.
That's normal.
That's normal. Before they go on stage.
Or after.
Well, they were smoking before they went on stage. And that was the professor.
Yeah, at my university also.
It was like that.
Yeah.
For inspiration.
Quite common.
For inspiration to feel relaxed and everything like that.
Da bi se opustili.
So I changed. So basically, I started studying all that stuff, and because in the university I switched my majors, I never really got a degree, even though I had enough credits in the university because I kept, you understand, switching majors. And then I didn't want to be a Hare Krishna devotee. I wanted to follow, to chant. But at that time in ISKCON, to be a Hare Krishna devotee meant living in the temple. There was no question of anybody at that time living outside the temple. If you lived outside the temple, you were in what we call Maya at that time. It was just like either you lived in the temple, you were a brahmachari with a shaved head, or you were a rascal. You had one choice. So I didn't want to become like that. And the devotees at that time were preaching rather heavily. They told me that if I didn't join, then I would become a demon, go to hell like the Christians do sometimes. They say, you're going to go to hell unless you join us, unless you accept the Lord Jesus in your heart. So the devotees were like that too. So I just avoided them for 2 more years. And I didn't want anything to do with the devotees. But I was chanting, I was following the practices and principles of Krishna consciousness. And then one day I was living on a farm with some friends. I heard that Prabhupada was coming to where I was. This was in 1971, 50 years ago. And so somehow or other, Prabhupada's coming created, even a week before he came, it created a spiritual atmosphere. That's how powerful Prabhupada was. That not only where he was physically, but even before he came, you could feel the difference in the atmosphere. So a week before, I just went to the temple and said, all right, I'm going to become a brahmachari. Brahmachari means bald head and saffron.
Like a monk.
Like monk, yeah, it means monk. Yeah, like Mount Athos.
Which temple was that?
You ever heard of Mount Athos?
Yeah. I have a friend
You have a friend of Mount Athos?
who introduced me to Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
He was investigating different spiritualities, and he went there and spent some few months there with the monks.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy place.
Yeah.
Some of you may not have heard of Mount Athos before. It's in Greece.
Greece.
In Greece, they only
Orthodox monks.
they only allow monks there. They don't even allow female animals.
Oh my God.
It's a real, it's wild.
Excuse me, Maharaj, I couldn't follow this story with Athos Islands in Greece.
Mount Athos, it's like an island in Greece,
Okay.
where there's many monasteries and monks there. And they only allow men there and male animals. I don't know what they do with the bugs, what they look at.
How they check them, yeah.
They check the bugs, the ants and the cockroaches and everything like that.
Oh my God.
If she sit with women,
Yeah, I'm
he said
serious.
it's a man.
I'm serious. It's actually a law there.
Provjerili to kao.
Kod ovih kukaca. Da.
So no, the temple wasn't like that. But it was, there were ladies there and men there, but it was pretty fanatical. So I decided to join because Prabhupada was coming, shaved my head. And I met Prabhupada, and the first thing when I met Prabhupada in 1971, in July 29th, 1971, is when Prabhupada came, I saw and recognized him as my spiritual master. And this was definitely a recognition from some past life, obviously. And I have very strong memories, very clear memories of those days when I was with Prabhupada. And then shortly thereafter, 2 weeks thereafter, I asked Prabhupada for initiation. And then in January of 1972, beginning of January 1972, I took initiation from Prabhupada. And then since that time, I've basically been doing the same thing. I've been going around, according to my level of understanding, which I didn't have much of in the early days because you're just learning things. But I've been trying to share Krishna consciousness with others in different ways. And I spent several years in Latin America because I speak Spanish. Spanish is my second language. And lived in Venezuela, Colombia, and Central America, helping start the movement there. Now we have many, many temples in those places. And so then travel around as a sannyasi. I took sannyas in 1978 when I was about 29 years old. Which kind of young.
Just a moment. Can you explain what does it mean?
Sannyas.
Sannyas, yeah.
Okay. Sannyas means complete dedication to sharing Krishna consciousness without any personal encumbrances, without any personal possessions. I mean, of course, obviously I have my clothes, my computer, my mobile phone, my electronic watch. Not that I'm walking around naked or anything. But it means that everything I have, it's a consciousness more than something external. It's the consciousness that everything I have is actually meant to serve Krishna. And I do have a lot of things. I have a car, I have so many things, but these things are all meant for Krishna's service. There's no separate life, not at all. And that's really what sannyas means. The word itself is composed of two syllables, san and yas. San actually means to accept. It's from song, to accept something. And yas means to give up. So you're giving up sort of personal interests and taking on the interests of the world or the interests of Krishna. And it requires someone really being, let's say, taking pleasure from that activity. It's not an artificial thing. Because if one tries to do it artificially, one can't stick to it, stay on that path. So one has to derive pleasure from that activity, and the main activity with sannyasi is sharing Krishna consciousness. So that's what I do. Go around the world, talk to people, share Krishna consciousness. And I'm happy, and I'm happy with the decisions I made in life. I'm not resenting or second-guessing any decision I made in life. So that's my life, basically. And it's blissful. So, what other subject matters should I talk about?
Can you say something about your service as a spiritual teacher or guru?
Okay, guru.
What does it mean?
Okay. Well, I have a little bit different idea of what a guru means. The word guru means heavy, because I sort of lost some weight recently. So I don't really fit into that. No, but it means heavy with spiritual knowledge. And there's certain prerequisites for someone to be a guru, like they have to be able to control their anger and all sorts of the pushings and pullings of the senses, and be able to communicate Krishna consciousness. But my understanding of guru is someone who actually facilitates people becoming Krishna conscious. Not someone who's like a boss. Because you'll find different ideas of what guru means, even in ISKCON, actually. There's some gurus who think that, I'm the boss and all my disciples are little slaves or whatever.
Slaves.
Yeah, slaves. So, my understanding is that I am a servant of everybody else. Not that anyone is my servant. And my concept of servitude is, I'm a slave. So, and actually that's borne out by statements by Lord Chaitanya. There's one in Bengali, Gopur Bharta Kamala Dasa Dasa Asana Dasa. I'm a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. And my business is to somehow or other encourage people to grow gradually in Krishna consciousness, not to impose Krishna consciousness on people, not to present Krishna consciousness as a bunch of rules. You know, many times you'll find people who take different quotes out of the Vedic literatures or writings of past acharyas, and they'll try to impose that on people, when sometimes those quotes or citations are actually not applicable. So I try to present the essence of Krishna consciousness. I'll try to go slower. Just tell me to slow down if you want. I try to take the essence of Krishna consciousness and help people cultivate their bhakti lata bijas, the growth of the creeper or the seed of devotion in the heart, by the simple process of chanting Hare Krishna, and hearing about Krishna and hearing Krishna's pastimes associated with devotees, taking prasad and all those things like that. So that's how I see my position, as, you know, a servant of the devotees. And it's fun. When one no longer tries to be a master, you know, sometimes the spiritual master is called the spiritual master. And when one no longer tries to be a master, Hare Krishna, then it's a big relief. You know, when you try to maintain yourself in a high position and try to portray yourself as something that you're not, it's kind of painful. So I just like being natural with people and trying to help people cultivate their Krishna consciousness. That's what I see as far as guru. And not have any sense of possession of anything or anyone. You know, it's not that you know, when people talk about disciples, it's not that I think that they belong to me or something like that. Because everyone belongs to Krishna. And to try to facilitate that relationship with whatever knowledge I have, whatever guidance I can give. Does that make sense? And then life is fun. Because too many people are trying to, they see themselves as something they're not. They identify with their position. They think that they're more spiritually advanced than they actually are. And they try to impose their restricted, ritualistic idea of what they think spiritual life is like. And it's not like that. Spiritual life is based on something from the heart and voluntary acceptance of Krishna consciousness. If we take Krishna consciousness as a demand, or we use the words or think of the words, have to, I must, then we've actually lost the essence of Krishna consciousness. Or if we do things ritualistically, you know, too many religions, including Krishna consciousness, in many cases, tend to devolve into ritualistic performances, you know, because you have so many different rules and regulations, and procedures, and everything like that. And then you really lose the essence, or what I call the why of Krishna consciousness. You know, why you're doing what you're doing, the purpose of doing what you're doing. So I try to present and facilitate Krishna consciousness in a very simple way. You know, open, simple way, and not find fault with anybody for what they're doing. Just, you know, someone can just chant Hare Krishna once. It's wonderful. And actually, that's what the acharyas say, that we offer respects in the mind, even if one chants Hare Krishna one time. Isn't it? I mean, that's what Rupa Goswami says. So, getting away from hierarchy. I know there's other conceptions, which I'm not here to criticize anyone else, but many people try to present Krishna consciousness in a very, what we call a hierarchical, you know what hierarchical means? Hierarchical way. You know, like that you have an authority. You know, sometimes they ask, you know, I introduce myself to a devotee and they say, my authority is so-and-so, and I don't even like that word, authority. Hare Krishna.
svoj autoritet je ta osoba.
I don't even like that word authority because Krishna consciousness is joyfully performed.
Autoritet.
And as soon as you
Jer
introduce
Krishna se
authority,
prakticira
then you have
s
like
radošću.
boss, dictator, blind following,
Riječi, šef,
all these other
diktator,
things that are
slijepo
introduced too.
slijeđenje.
So, my idea is just, you know, as actually it was like Mao Tse-tung said, "Let 1,000 flowers bloom." Have you ever heard that saying before? Anyway, that's from China. Just let everybody chant Hare Krishna at the level or deal with Krishna consciousness at the level they're able to deal with. And that's what I'm here for. And I'm so happy to, reach out to people, help people, facilitate people, interact with people. That's my life. Does that answer the question? To me, that's what a guru is. Other people have different conceptions. Other people think the guru is the boss.
Can I move this one?
Yes. Well, that's it.
I'm sorry.
That's Sundarananda's camera.
Fuck the camera.
Now you're offline. Oh, went back online again.
Yeah.
And how did you become guru?
Okay, this is an interesting story. And that involves a little bit of ISKCON history.
To uključuje
And some
nešto
parts of
iz
ISKCON history that are
povijesti.
not so nice.
Okay.
Which I'll tell. I'm not
Ta povijest možda i nije
objecting
najdivnija,
to
ali
saying,
reći ću.
telling it. Prabhupada was the only guru on the planet
Prabhupada je bio jedini
until
guru na planeti.
1977, the end of 1977, November of 1977.
November 77.
And we all love Prabhupada. We're ready to do anything for Prabhupada, ready to die for Prabhupada, and I still am.
Bili
But
smo spremni umriti za
So,
Prabhupada, još uvijek jesmo.
what happened is when Prabhupada left,
Kada je Prabhupada napustio tijelo,
there were 11 people
11
who
ljudi
took over the role of being
preuzeli
gurus.
ulogu gurua.
Prabhupada did not intend that only those 11 would take over the role.
Prabhupada nije
But
namjeravao da tih
Those
11 preuzmu
were
svijet.
some of the main leaders before Prabhupada left, and Prabhupada had appointed them
Prabhupada je
to
dakle odredio,
accept disciples on his behalf when Prabhupada was present.
dakle, da ti učenici
So then,
preuzmu.
the world, they divided the world into 11 zones.
Aha, podijelili su
You know
već
about
11
this.
zona.
Quite
They divided the world.
the world into 11 zones.
Podijelili su
Of
11
jurisdiction.
svijet na
I
11
don't
zona,
like
tih
this
11
concept.
gurua.
Sorry.
I don't like it either. No, I don't like it either. I mean, I'm just telling the bad and the good. Yeah, I'm not going to hide anything. So the world was divided into 11 zones, and if you were in a particular zone, you had to follow
This guru.
the guru, who was also the managerial head simultaneously, which is a real problem.
Što je bio problem?
Because according to the Vedic system,
Jer prema vetskom sustavu
you have to differentiate between managers and spiritual personalities. I don't know if you've ever learned about the Varnashram.
Yeah.
You know, you have Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. So there's a breakup of different duties according to one's situation in Varnashram and the Varnas. And a Brahmin is one who can really speak the truth to power, and he has nothing to lose. And he's not managing anything. The managers have to listen to him. And then you have the managers who are managing like that, but they're not the spiritual heads. And so when you get the same person wearing both hats, you end up with a conflict of interest. You know, let's say imagine if you're working a job, you're working in the tourist industry or whatever, and your boss is also your guru. It's actually frightening, isn't it?
It won't work.
It won't work, because then it's even bad for him or her. Because, we believe in lady gurus too. So, but it's bad because you're thinking when you're dealing with someone, am I thinking of how to get them to do something, or am I thinking for their welfare? And you can't think of both simultaneously. It's like a conflict of interest. Because management and compassionate spirituality don't go well together. I mean, they work together, but they don't go well with the same person. That's a problem. I think you've seen that before. And so you got a conflict. And so, therefore, in the 11 zones of the world, there was a conflict. You know, you had these absolute personalities. If you were in their zone, you had to take initiation from them, even if you didn't like them. Were you around then, Sundarananda?
Sorry?
You came later after that, right?
A little later, yeah.
A little later.
But I think that in Hare Krishna Swami zone it was not so.
Was so heavy.
Yeah.
You're lucky.
Yeah, I'm.
No, he actually had other people initiated in his zone too at that time. He encouraged. So anyway, so basically there were 11, but he was pretty absolute in his zone.
Yeah, of course.
He was an absolute.
But it was because of two reasons. I'm just short.
Yeah.
One reason was because other God brothers consider him, you know, like their senior God brother who was close to Prabhupada, and they naturally respected him. That's, I know when I approached to my Guru Maharaj, he asked me, did you listen Hare Krishna Swami ever? I said, no. He said, you should listen his classes, and if you still think that I can lead you, then we can discuss. That was natural.
Right.
Not that Hare Krishna told them like that, but they felt like this.
That's good. Well, anyway.
And another point is that he was really very excellent manager.
Yeah.
Maybe best than anyone else, and he was really, in that sense, he was obeyed by...
He was obeyed, but what I experienced was in Sweden, devotees were actually relieved when he was no longer in charge.
I can understand.
And he was directly dealing with you because of that conflict of interest. It was like, I was there immediately when he left his position, and they felt a great sense of relief.
Yeah.
Because that was his main headquarters.
Yeah.
Korsnäs.
Korsnäs, yeah.
So, anyway, so the world was divided in 11 places, in 11 zones. And I was in one of the zones, obviously. I'm not going to mention where, it's not. And I had to deal with one of them, who shall remain nameless,
Fortunately, only one.
to protect the innocent. And he's my good friend right now, so it's not, it's just that.
He's alive?
Yeah, he's alive. He's alive, he's a very good friend, I'm very close, we're buddies, so don't worry about it. People get better with age, they're like good wine. Some people do. So anyway, so I was in a zone, and because my nature is to be, a little independent and progressive and everything like that, I wasn't able to work in such a situation. Because in each and every one of those zones, the gurus really had to be worshipped, even by their god brothers. So remember the scenario. Before Prabhupada left, we were all just like one team, god brothers, and all of a sudden, one of your friends becomes as good as God. That was the scenario I experienced as a Prabhupada disciple. He says, oh my God. It's like your friend is elected to be president of the country or something like that. And then he no longer treats you like your friend anymore. It's just like you're one of the citizens. You got to listen to him. And I said, I'm out of here. So what happened is I decided to go to a place where there were none of these gurus.
Really?
Yeah, I picked a place in the United States where there were no, I specifically picked a place.
North Carolina?
Yeah, North Carolina, yeah. North Carolina, the United States. So, and I basically didn't have anyone with me. It was practically all alone, maybe one or two people who were basically dysfunctional because nobody else wanted them. So, it's just like, of course I was able to help them, and they became pretty dysfunctional. One of the people went with me was a lady who had multiple personality disorder. She had 11 personalities. But because I had studied psychology, I was able to get her to go to a particular personality when I wanted her to. And so She had one personality who was a man who was a construction person. So when I wanted something built, then she became that man. All right. And then when I wanted Didi clothes to be sewn, all right. So we have to learn how to work in different, one has to be very flexible in different situations.
Excuse me, you're talking about this specific personality.
One person.
Could you explain a little bit? I couldn't
11,
translate.
Imala je
11 osoba se molila.
11 osoba u jednoj osobi.
That's one lady.
There's one, you have people, it's called MPD, multiple personality disorder, where a person has many different,
Is
even
she a girl or?
if she was a girl, sometimes a girl, sometimes a girl. So just like you could see their handwriting changes when their personalities, it's not, they're not the same person.
Wow.
They're not the same person. But they can be good devotees. It's really interesting.
She changed,
All of them, yeah, they're all good.
changed 11,
Yeah,
11,
personalities.
11 devotees.
11 devotees.
Yeah, 11 devotees, like
Elon.
having 11 devotees rather than one devotee, And you only have to maintain one devotee and you got 11 for it. Different skill sets, too. So, Krishna taught me a lot of things about psychology and everything since I've been doing. So anyway, so I went there, and we had practically no resources. I was able to purchase some land and build up a whole community. And by building up a whole community, and now we have a really big community there. By building up a whole community, I naturally became the guru there. And anyway, it just happened. It just happened dynamically. And, because I was guiding people and they wanted to take initiation and everything like that. Because I wanted to get away from that, 11-person scenario, 11-person situation. And since then, it's kind of changed. I mean, that 11-person zones and everything no longer existing. People take spiritual inspiration where they want to take spiritual inspiration. In ISKCON now. But one problem still persists to a certain degree is where you have spiritual personalities who also try to manage, or managerial personalities who also try to be spiritual. And it can end up with a conflict sometimes. Because I was actually talking about this earlier today with all the devotees, that in every center, at least at a big center, you need someone who you can go to who has no managerial responsibilities, so you can trust them completely. Like in America, for example, in the churches, they're mostly, Protestant churches, not Catholic churches. You have a board of people who manage the church, and then you have a minister whose only business is
To inspire people.
to inspire people. He has nothing to do with the finances, nothing to do with any management. He's just for the people. And that model, I very much... You got a message on your phone? Is it something? The battery is kaput.
Not yet. 20%.
20%. Okay.
More.
That's enough. So all of us, we need someone who we can just reveal our mind to, who has no other service or no other objective than to help us in spiritual life or help us in our lives. And in ISKCON, that's, I'm talking about, the major temples and everything and the zones, that's a little bit missing right now. Because you can't conflate, you can't combine those two services of being guru and also managerial leader. People need shelter, and it's a big problem. So anyway, so that's how I became guru. As they say, if you can't beat them, join them.
And something
You have that
changed.
saying in Croatian too? You can't beat them, join them. So, but you know, I of course I also have to do some management.
Ali morao sam naravno i neki
Here in
menadžerske
Slovenia,
funkcije obavljati.
I'm not involved in management at
Ovo
all,
ovdje u Sloveniji
even though I'm
nisam involviran
still
u
the
menadžment
GBC for a variety of reasons.
iz
Not all,
različitih razloga.
that you can probably guess. So I'm mainly here for the devotees.
A ovdje sam ponajprije zbog vas.
So the description of my service as GBC here in Slovenia is mainly devotee care.
Moja služba
Can't,
kao
so which is
GBC-a
really
u
what I like to
Sloveniji je
do rather
jedna
than
od
management.
primarnih dužnosti mojih ovdje u Sloveniji.
And then, you know, when I visit Croatia, it's good I don't have any managerial responsibility.
Jako dobro. Kad
Because then I can just
Hrvatskoj
relate to the
nemam
devotees and help the
menadžerske
devotees.
dužnosti.
I enjoy that much more.
Više volim činiti ovo drugo,
So,
duhovne djelatnosti nego menadžerske.
What other questions you all have? Or topics you'd like me to talk about?
There are some questions and topics various devotees are frequently asking me
Okay.
how to share, how to really to present this Krishna consciousness to the people that will accept because they have, like you also mentioned or touched the topic, different approaches when they are listening different authorities. So they are wondering how to present, because they feel that this Krishna consciousness is so sublime and nice,
Yeah.
and they really feel within their hearts that they want to share this with people, but they are simultaneously, they're confused how is it that people are not accepting it because it is so attractive to them. So they are wondering, they're questioning me how to present this Krishna consciousness to other people.
To be also attractive to them.
Yeah.
Attractive to that.
Yeah.
Well, what I find is you have to understand who you're talking to before
Prije
you
svega
talk to
moramo
them.
razumjeti kome govorimo.
Because everybody has different needs. As
Jer svatko
Krishna,
ima različite potrebe.
Krishna says in the Gita, of course, Krishna classifies
Krishna klasificira u Bhagavad Gita
people who come to Krishna consciousness into 4 different categories.
različite
You know,
kategorije ljudi.
those who are looking for knowledge, those who are inquisitive, those who are in distress, or those who are looking for material opulence in relationship to God.
Četiri vrste ljudi prilaze Bogu.
I think there's more categories too, but those are the 4
Smatram da
general
postoje
categories.
još više kategorija, ovdje su četiri osnovne.
And so what I find is that I'd like to talk to someone first and find out their interest before I
Prije
present
nego
Krishna
što
consciousness.
želim prvo shvatiti s kim imam
You know, what is someone
razgovarati.
interested in?
U što su zainteresirani, što im je
And
relevantno.
then I will try by asking them questions
I
to
onda
find out
pokušavam pitati ih pitanja da bih prepoznao
not only what
shvatio
they're interested in,
u što su
but what they'd
zainteresirani,
like to hear
o
about.
čemu vole slušati.
I try to get people to ask me questions, as you see that I'm doing right
Da
now,
oni meni postavljaju pitanja.
because in this way I can touch their hearts a lot more.
Mogu im na taj
Because if
način
I start
dodirnuti srce
presenting
puno bolje.
my particular perspective on Krishna consciousness,
Tako umjesto da im dam svoju perspektivu
it maybe
gledanja
go
svijesti s Krišnom,
either above their heads or may not be of interest to them,
dakle,
or
možda
maybe
oni
in it,
neće biti
it's just
zainteresirani, prođe pored njih, to
not relative.
nije im relevantno.
So I want to find out what concerns them.
I onda pokušati
Someone may
što je
be
njima tema,
concerned
što ih brine.
with ecology.
Ako im je tema
Someone may be
ekologija,
concerned with animal rights.
neki se pravimo životinja,
Someone may be concerned with what their identity is, what their purpose of life is. I mean, there's all sorts of
to
different
može biti zanimljivo. Različite
concerns
su teme, dakle.
with the sun.
Uh,
I'm concerned with the sun hitting my eyes.
we can turn on other side if you want.
I think just let me turn me around a little bit. But then
Okay,
putting
I
my
will
back
move
to
over
it.
there.
That's
Don't
not
worry.
nice. That's
Don't
not
worry, I
nice.
will move there.
That's
Yeah.
not nice. Anyway, the sun is still
Here he's not.
Yeah, maybe there it's not.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's better. You got the trees. That's all right.
Okay. A da ga vidim, ja, znaš.
That's all right. So
Ne,
I try to ask questions
pokušam postavljati
rather than
pitanja.
talk so much.
Dakle, postavljati pitanja ljudima, a ne toliko pitati ljudi.
The problem that I see with,
Problem koji
I hate to use the word preachers, those who are presenting Krishna consciousness,
Oni koji prezentiraju sve
Thank you, because they talk too
vidim,
much.
ja, je da previše pričaju.
And especially now,
Naročito sad.
people's span of attention is very little.
Aha,
because of basically because of the media, because of modern technology.
Zbog moderne tehnologije i medija.
So people tend to think in short phrases.
Aha, drugim riječima,
And so I've adjusted my methodology of speaking to be in short phrases.
ljudi razmišljaju na način
Because
sve
people
u kratkim
can
frazama,
digest it a
u
lot
kratkim
easier.
izrazima. I onda pokušavam isto tako ja
It's a good
prezentirati
idea.
svjesno.
Yeah, I can see me.
Svjesno skrišno pokušavam prezentirati. na
So
način-
basically, I will usually hear from someone twice as much as I will speak.
Aha, dakle,
And
dvostruko
also,
više pokušavam
another point
slušati nego
is-
što govorim. Dvostruko više.
That most people have a need to be heard.
I većina ljudi imaju potrebu da ih
And
se
in
sluša
today's world,
u današnjem svijetu.
they can't find someone to listen to them.
Ne mogu pronaći nekog ko će ih slušati.
And I find that the need that most people have is one of empathy,
Da je to zapravo...
compassion, or someone who listens to them.
Dakle, to je...
And so I function on that basis, and I try to bring out their spirituality. You know, or I'll ask them, what do you think about reincarnation?
Aha,
What do
dakle,
you think happens at the time of death? What is your opinion?
aha, dakle, pita, tako na taj način pita ljudi šta misle.
And
o
then
reinkarnaciji,
based on
šta
that,
se događa
I'll
u trenutku smrti, koje je vaše
Facilitate
mišljenje?
a conversation
I na taj način
with
omogućujem
someone, introduce them to
konverzaciju,
Krishna consciousness,
da oni pričaju.
rather than just tell them, you know,
A ne
that
samo
we
da-
believe
bolje tako nego da im...
you're not the body, you're spirit soul, and we have these wonderful four regulative principles. No meat, fish, or eggs, and if you're eating meat, you're a demon.
Ovo su 4 životne principa, dakle, ono...
And no intoxication,
Nema
and
opijanja,
that
nema
includes
mesa,
coffee.
ribe, jaja.
And that,
I onda kao, dakle,
by then I
se
probably
kreće
lost the
kamion.
person, you know.
On the spot.
Yeah, no. I even forgot about the other two regulative principles. those are the worst. And no flying multicolored flags in the air. So
Aha, vjerujem.
rainbow flags.
Ovo je sjelo. Ovo, dugine boje, zastave.
And you know, I said, and who's that guy with you? Oh, he's my boyfriend. Oh no, you should get married immediately.
A tko ti je ovaj? Tam je dečko. A, treba se odmah oženiti, treba ti se odmah vjenčati. To je taj pričak koji nije poželjan.
Yeah, if they're single, you know, what are you doing single? There's no ashram. There's no single ashram.
Ne postoji
You got to join the
samac.
temple immediately.
Moraš se pridružiti tamo odmah.
And what's that stuff you have on your head?
Šta je to na glavi? Kako je to kosa?
You know, get rid of it. You know, it's Maya.
Maja,
Hippie
imati
seeds,
kosu.
as Prabhupada would say. So I just like to, you know, find out where they're at, and then I'll just facilitate that discussion according to where they're at.
Pokušavam razumjeti gdje su. I
And
onda
the interesting thing is, I've done a lot of study in different subject matters. So if someone says,
isto tako.
like, I'm into ecology, I can have a whole discussion about ecology.
Ako netko želi o
If someone says,
ekologiji pričati, o tome ćemo pričati. Mogu
I'm
o
a
tome
doctor,
pričati.
I know a lot about medicine, I've studied microbiology.
Studirao sam
So
mikrobiologiju,
I
znam
really, on the
dosta o
side, I do a
medicini.
lot of studies in different things. You know, if someone says, I'm in theater. And I said, oh, I studied Stanislavski's method acting when I was in the
Ako mi se
university.
kaže ja sam u teatru, u glumi, onda mogu o tome
Which is
pričati.
true, I did.
Zato što sam i to
That my
studirao.
teacher was teaching that way.
Moj
It was
učitelj
interesting,
me
and
tome učio.
when I went to the university, the first thing, he
Kada sam
took his
išao
course, he said,
na
now you all
sveučilište,
have to become trees.
Yeah, I know that lesson.
You know that course, yeah.
nešto, svi trebate
And so
biti
we actually had
drveći.
to act
Yeah.
like trees.
A, morate
I wasn't such a good
dakle,
tree,
neke od
but...
prvih lekcija da su morali glumiti drveće.
So in other words, it's good to be well-rounded in different
Dobro-
subject
dobro je
matters.
biti, upućen-
So you can talk to
upućen u
anybody
različite
about their
teme,
particular
tako da
interests.
možemo sa svakim pričati o temi koja njih zanima.
And I find that if people find you to be a regular person,
I kada ljudi shvate da ste normalna osoba,
and not just like some fanatic Hare Krishna that all you can just talk about is Hare Krishna,
danas koji su fanatik Hare Krishna,
then
koji
people
samo o
become
tome
much more
govore,
open.
onda su puno otvoreni.
And then I usually wait for them to ask the questions.
I onda, dakle, ja čekam da oni postave
And it really
pitanje.
works.
I to zaista djeluje.
Because there's this fear when someone starts preaching to us, it's just like,
Postoji
it
strah
turns
kod
us off
ljudi.
immediately. At least that's been my experience.
To je postoji strah ljudi ako im
I
direktno
don't like
zapravo
it.
propovjedamo da jednostavno odmah se
So
oni
it's, I
udaljavaju.
like to have like nice conversations with people.
Pokušavam imati
So
lijepe
that's how I
razgovore s
would
ljudima.
present Krishna
Na
consciousness.
taj način prezentiram svjesnost Krišne.
And not some ritualistic system and
Ne neki samo ritualisti.
And I'd be careful about bringing people to the organization ISKCON in the beginning.
Oprezan sam da uopće dovedem ljude u kontakt s
Yeah,
organizacijom ISKCON.
Anywhere, because it tends to be hierarchical.
Zato što
It's not a comment about specifically about Croatia, don't worry. But it's a comment about any organization like that. It's very hierarchical.
Zato što je jako hijerarhijska organizacija, onda imam tu malo sam.
I mean, just like here at this camp, we have a whole bunch of people, who just don't go to the temple that much, and they're really nice devotees who've been attending the camp, and they just feel really comfortable here in an informal situation, just relating and talking about Krishna. We have this seminar we're doing every day.
Oni se ovdje osjećaju se ugodno ovdje, ali ne posjećuju
Empathic
hram.
communication, yeah. And so I got people from all over Sweden, like all over coming. And people like this better than a formal atmosphere.
Dakle, ljudi to
Just
više
very
vole, tako
informal
opušteni,
friends that people take
neformalniji
prasadam.
situacije, okolnosti,
Probably
nego
most of the
formalna
devotees are out swimming
hijerarhijska
right now.
situacija, kao što je recimo u hramu.
And so that's the best way to present Krishna
To je
consciousness as far
najbolji
as I
način
can see.
prezentiranja svjesnosti Krišne kao što u onom okviru kako ja mogu vidjeti. Thank you. Yeah, this is very nice.
Is that all right? Yeah. And that works everywhere in the world.
I to funkcionira.
It's not just like
posve
here or
u
there.
svijetu.
It works everywhere. Because you have to be genuinely interested in people.
Moramo zaista imati interes za ljude, drugim riječima biti brižni za ljude.
People
osjećati za
feel,
ljude.
and it has to be real,
I moramo
that
biti
if
stvarni.
you're interested in them as a person
Kada si zainteresiran za njih kao za
and
osobu,
their benefit as a person, people reciprocate.
dakle, ljudi će
But if you come
reciprocirati
after
ako
them
zaista ih
as like
prepoznajemo i vidimo kao osobe,
objects rather than subjects,
dakle, da ih vidimo, a ako ih vidimo kao objekte, a ne kao
turns them-
subjekte,
turns them off. I mean,
to ih okrene,
one thing
to-
that
to im se
impressed
ne sviđa.
me about Prabhupada, I think more than anything else, more than the philosophy, more than anything else, was here was someone who really had compassion and love for everybody, and it had nothing to do
bio taj koji
with
je
his own
imao
personal
ljubav i
interests.
suosjećanje prema svakome, ne
You know,
da je to
many
filozofija
times-
bila u prvom planu.
Love or compassion
It's motivated, yeah.
is motivated. I'm even,
Ljubav i
hate to
samilost,
say this, but between
je
in the
zaista
families, it's
motivirajuće.
motivated.
a ne toliko filozofija.
It's what we call skin disease.
Nešto u vezi bolesti. Ovo stvari bolest kože, nešto koji se vjerojatno nesi.
Like, there's this nice book. What was it called? This nice play. It's called Metamorphosis. You know this play? Metamorphosis.
Metamorfoza,
And
nešto.
who's the author of that again?
Kafka?
Kafka.
Film,
Kafka.
Film, Kafka.
Kafka,
Postoji
yeah.
to djelo, Metamorfoza.
Very, very, very interesting.
Preobrazba.
You're probably aware of,
Preobražaj.
you know that. So you got this young man who's part of the family, and he wakes up and he's a big cockroach.
Yes.
U jednom bude kao veliki kukac žohar.
Gregor Samsa.
Da, Gregor Samsa. Se probudio u krevetu. To je ta priča.
You've done a play of that, or
I didn't.
but they've had it as a play,
But I
or
know that, yes.
yeah, it would be an interesting play, a very Krishna conscious play.
To bi moglo biti
It is
interesantno.
Krishna conscious,
Igrokaz
actually.
svjestan Krišne.
So the boy wakes up as a big cockroach, and eventually the family rejects him and he dies.
Dakle, on se jedno jutro
Very sad
preobrazio
story.
u
But it's a
kukca
story of
i s
reincarnation.
vremenom ga je obitelj u potpunosti odbacio.
And how
To je
the
Kafke taj preobražaj.
the love of the family is based on the way the person looks, or whatever
To znači da je
Or
ljubav
expectation.
obitelji
expectations. Yeah.
zasnovana
And
na
then
tome
the
kako
poor
osoba
boy is
izgleda.
neglected, even though he speaks the same way. He's a speaking cockroach.
On je, dakle, iako je govorio i dalje, ali jednostavno zato što drugačije izgleda i nisu više
And
imali
then,
interesa u njemu, počeli sasvim drugačije.
But Prabhupada's love was not like that. I mean, Prabhupada loved even the cockroach.
Prabhupada nije takav bio. On
It
svakako
didn't matter
žohare
what we
volio.
looked at like. And to Prabhupada, we looked like a bunch of animals.
Za Prabhupada mi smo
When
izgledali
Prabhupada
kao
came to
gomila
America,
životinja.
I mean, it was, if you see these early videos or early pictures,
Ako pogledate
I mean, the
prve
people-
video i slike,
I mean, that's how I look too, anyway. So,
Ljudi
you know, the
koji su
hippie
na tim prvim
generation.
vidovima, koji su se
And to
pridruživali
Prabhupada, it
Prabhupadi.
was like dealing with gorillas, basically.
Prabhupada je praktično kao da je imao posla s
And
gorilama.
so, but Prabhupada didn't pay any attention. It was just simply, it was love.
On je
And so when I
jednostavno
met
davao
Prabhupada, he
se s
emanated
ljubavlju.
that love for
Je emanirao
everybody.
tu svoju ljubav. Iako je su ljudi
And that
zaista bili-
permeated that's a big word. It just went everywhere in the atmosphere.
i
And
to se
so we
širilo
felt that.
posvuda. I mi
And
smo
that's
to
what
osjetili.
convinced me about Prabhupada.
I to je ono što me uvjerilo u vezi
Not the
Prabhupada.
philosophy. I mean, I was already following the philosophy, but about him personally. And I think that's the best way to reach people if we actually can develop that sort of compassion from the heart. Because that's what people are looking for,
To je ono što ljudi traže.
not for philosophy.
Ne traže filozofiju.
I mean, philosophy, yeah, you're not your body. Okay.
Ok,
Great.
filozofija isto reći, nisi to tijelo. Ali ljudi traže samilost.
You know, so what? Not the body and spirit, soul, reincarnation. So what?
Da, šta s tim?
Isn't it?
Ok, nisi ovo tijelo, ti
There
si
has to be
duhovna duša,
connection.
reinkarnacija.
It seems the greatest challenge for all religious movements,
Yeah.
although every religious movement has a basis on some genuine spiritual philosophy and ideals of liberation, of love, of the truth. But every religious institution comes to the trap of getting the followers
Dakle, svaka religijska
Yeah.
institucija upada u zamku
rather
dobivanja sljedbenika,
than to be, as you said, facilitator of spiritual
nego da
growth,
budu omogućivači
Yeah, that's what happens-
which is
duhovnog
actually
života.
their greatest benefit.
Yeah, that's part of institutionalization,
To je dio
that you
institucionalizacije.
tend to count the numbers and followers and
Da,
then
postoji ta tendencija
money
da
and
se
everything
nešto
else that
sve
comes
stavlja u
with that.
brojke, broj sljedbenika,
And that's a big-
novac, brojke,
temptation.
to je taj izazov, to je
And
ta
that's why Bhakti
napast-
Siddhanta Saraswati
napast
Thakur said,
institucije.
there was never a religion that wasn't destroyed by
Bhakti
the
Siddhanta
institutionalization.
Saraswati
He actually made that statement.
je rekao, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati
Yeah.
Thakur je rekao da
So I'm not saying-
institucionalizacija uništava-
but still he
nije bila
wanted an
religija koja nije
institution.
institucija ubila.
Because without an
Uništila.
institution, you can't reach the people.
Ali bez
on a
institucija ne možeš
worldwide
doći do ljudi.
basis.
Dakle, tako da
So
institucija potrebna.
there's a downside
Postoji dobra
and an
strana,
upside to institutions.
postoji dobra i loša,
And one has to
gornja
be
i donja
very,
strana
very careful.
institucije. I moramo biti
Not
oprezni s tim,
lose your humanity.
da ne izgubimo svoju čovječnost.
That's it's something that we have to really be careful about.
A to je nešto oko čega trebamo biti
Yeah,
vrlo
I think
oprezni.
its main question is what's the purpose of institute? What purpose institution is supposed to serve?
It's supposed to serve the
Dakle,
people.
institucija treba
It's
služiti
supposed to
ljudi,
serve
to je
the
glavna tema, glavna
It's
facilitation.
facilitate the members, not the opposite that the members facilitate the institution. The institution. I mean, what's the purpose of a car?
Institucija treba pružiti mogućnosti članovima, služiti članovima.
You know, not to be served. But if you get a real expensive car, you end up serving it.
Kao i sa skupim autom. Oni treba-
Yeah, I mean,
auto
obviously, if
treba
you get an
služiti nas,
expensive
ali
car,
ako
then you
imate
start
skupi
thinking
auto,
about
onda
it all
na
the
kraju ispadne da
time.
vi služite auto.
I'll tell you a funny story.
Podržavate.
This is about me. Some of my disciples
Neki od mojih
bought
učenika
me a Tesla.
kupili su mi Teslu.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
You know, well, whatever. Anyway,
Is it
so
here?
no, it's not here. It's in here. It's here. I take you for a ride. So then
Hear
then
about Nevera.
Ko su-
I'm joking.
and
kupili su mi Teslu.
then I start thinking about it more. You know, where is it?
U tom autu počeo sam razmišljati.
It's eco-friendly car, so
Well, it's eco-friendly, but it's like
Eco-friendly.
something that you
Prijateljski
start
eko.
thinking of more than the reason for having a car.
Yeah.
Dakle, počneš više
And then
razmišljati o
what
samom
happened
nego o
is,
svrsi zašto ga imaš.
One of the first times I used it,
Pa prvi put kad sam ga
I
upotrijebio,
got a ticket. You could have speeding
oh,
because I became so attached to it.
poslije sam vezan za to.
And it
vidim
goes-
kako ide, kako to ide. Ne?
You know, it goes like 0 to 80 in like 2 seconds.
Za 2 sekunde dođe do 80 km na sat.
So naturally, I tried it out.
Like every inquisitive soul.
Yeah, like every inquisitive soul. Naturally, I tried it out. Next thing I know, I saw these lights flashing behind me.
I onda kad To je sačala, kako policijske sirene su bile iza njega. This is your.
And I was pulled over. Then I started praying to Lord Nrsimhadev. You know, Namaste, Narashinaya, Palada, Lada, Dayane. And I thought Krishna was going to help me, but he didn't help me.
So some of disciples got the Maha ticket.
No, I had to hire a lawyer to avoid losing my license. That's how bad it was. That's how fast I was going. So Krishna was teaching me a lesson.
Thank you for sharing.
Amazing story.
It's an interesting story, isn't it?
So it's not that just all of us are having these lections, but also the gurus.
Yeah, I'm learning too, you know.
Ordinary mortals like us.
I'm an ordinary mortal, but I was just learning, you know. So in other words, we become attached to the vehicle, then we lose our priorities. You know, we lose our vision of what the purpose is. And we think the purpose is the vehicle, rather than the purpose is getting where you're supposed to go to. So I was just making a metaphor between that and the institution. And institutions are valuable, and vehicles are valuable. So since then, I've learned to use it practically. Now I can do many programs, and it drives itself back from the programs. It's practically self-driving, actually. So, but I'm not serving it anymore. I'm not thinking for 24 hours a day. Only when I'm awake. So it's almost kaput. So it's still going. You have a portable battery that can hook onto the phone? You have a wire and a portable battery.
I think it will survive. Maybe.
Yeah, just let it go on. So, anyway, that's the point about institution, which is an interesting thing. You don't get used by the institution, you use the institution. You know, what determines whether something is bad or good is your use of it. It's like a weapon. You know, like, is a weapon bad or a knife? Is a knife bad or good? If you use it to cut vegetables, it's kind of nice. If you use it to cut people, it's not so nice. So the knife is neutral. So I see an institution, but there's a danger in getting attached to a weapon. I'll tell you an interesting story from the Ramayana, which is about Lord Ramachandra. Everyone's heard about the Ramayana and Lord Ramachandra and everything like that. So here you have, that's a big battery.
Sorry.
Power pack. I'll let him put that in there. Okay. Got it rolling. Pretty good. So in the Ramayana, there's an interesting story. You know, Sita and Ram are in the forest. And Ram is killing all these Rakshasas. Rakshasas means, you know, people eating people. You know, bad people eat good people. So he has this bow and arrow. And Sita is preaching to him, saying to him, you shouldn't be carrying your bow around, because if you carry it around, there'll always be the temptation to use it. And she even tells a story from the Puranas, from some ancient literature. She says one time there was this great sage, you know, Brahmin, and Indra he's like one of the demigods. He
Indra koji je
wanted
jedan
to
od polubogova,
deviate that sage from his activities
želio ga
because
je
he was
obstruirati
envious.
da tog moderacija
And
napusti
Indra
svoje
gave him a
asketske.
weapon,
I onda mu je dao
and the
oružje.
sage became so attached to having that weapon
I taj
that he
moderacija
used it,
postao
and
toliko
then he
vezan za
fell
oružje
down from his position
da
of
ga stalno
being
upotrebljavao i tako
a
pao
great
s svoje
sage.
pozicije. Indra ga
So
je
if
na
you
taj
put
način
something
prevario.
in someone's hands, there's a temptation
Kada je neko tako
to
sredstvo
misuse it.
u nečim rukama, onda je tu napast
So what happens with
da
institutions,
koristimo to. Tako isto i sa
if you give
institucijama.
power to someone,
Ako date nekome moć,
then there's a tendency to misuse that power.
postoji tendencija da
And,
zlopotrebe
there's
tu
this
moć.
interesting statement that
Postoji interesantna
and the Prabhupada made.
izjava
He said,
koju je
if
Prabhupada
you
rekao.
go to Lanka, you become Ravana. And I guess some of you may not understand what Lanka is, where this big
Dakle,
demon
ako
Ravana
odete na
used to
Lanku,
live.
poslije ćete Ravana. Lanka
And
na Lanki je bio Ravan.
Prabhupada's saying if you have power, the common saying is power corrupts,
Dakle,
and
običajna
absolute
izreka
power. I think I have to
da
shift
moć
again.
dakle, da moć korumpira,
That's
a
better.
apsolutna moć
No, it's not
korumpira
better.
apsolutno.
Absolute power.
Surya. Surya
No, that
also
doesn't
wants
work
to
either.
talk, to hear about him.
If you like, I can stand and block the
You
sun.
could stand and block a little bit to the left. Yeah, that's good. Okay, great. That's fantastic. Now you have
After 3
a
minutes, we
I'm in the middle
halo.
now.
But you have an
I
effulgence
got
now.
also some attention now. Thank you.
You have a big effulgence around you now. It's just like lights around you.
Sada imaš auru veliku.
Sunshine. Wow, you're brilliant. So
Sunčeva svjetlost.
power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Dakle, moć korumpira,
And
apsolutna moć korumpira.
we did see that,
apsolutno.
like referring back to the early guru days in ISKCON,
Vratimo se na te
that
teme
when you
prvih
had
gurua u
people who
Iskonu,
weren't, certain people weren't qualified to have that
ljudi nisu
certain,
bili
that
kvalificirani
position,
za tu
they
poziciju.
became corrupted by that
Postali su
power.
korumpirani tom moć,
power position. It is a danger
to je opasnost.
that when people like it, even guru, someone listens to you, people listen to you, people help you do different things. It's just like you become corrupted.
Ljudi te slušaju, onda si ti onak istaknut,
And
postaješ korumpiran
one
u
of
svim
our
tim
acharyas
okolnostima.
mentions that that's a cause of what we call anarthas. Anarthas means unwanted things,
Jedan
impediments,
acharya je rekao da je to uzrok
things that
anarhije,
block
ne-
Krishna
neželjenih,
consciousness,
stvari u
that
srcu.
one gets power or prestige,
Power, moć,
and that
prestiž, kada se
interferes
osoba
with
daje.
one's
I onda
spiritual
to interferira
development.
sa duhovnim,
And Lord Chaitanya, of course, says in his Shikshashika, what is it, Nadanam, Najanam,
Gospodin
Sundarim,
Chaitanya kaže taj stih u Šikšaštaki na
that
danu na džanu.
any sort of material opulence can
Svaka
actually
vrsta
interfere
duhovnog
with your
obilja
spiritual development
može opstruirati,
if you take it the wrong way.
duhovne vrijednosti.
There's a great lady named Queen Kunti
Postoji dama,
who said, Janmaya
kraljica
Shvarya Shutashu
Kunti.
Shibir,
Postoji taj
Shibir,
stih koji ona izgovara.
that if one is
Kraljica
proud of their birth,
Kunti, ako je
is
neko
very rich,
ponosan ili
is very
bogat
intelligent,
za svoje
or is
rođenje
very attractive materially,
ili na neki način ima neka obilja materijalna,
then that actually can lead to false pride.
to onda može voditi do
So it's a great danger
lažnog
when
ponosa.
one is very proud like that.
Da osoba postane
So
ponosna.
that's what I'm talking about. Power. One gets power, and it
Kada osoba
corrupts you.
stekne moć, onda to može korumpirati osobu.
So we have to be careful of that
S tim
in this
trebamo biti
world.
oprezni.
Position, power, money.
Pozicija, moć, novac.
We always have to maintain our humility. The way to
Na taj način uvijek trebamo držati svoj
the way to
ponos.
actually conquer Krishna or to be Krishna conscious is to be humble, as Lord Chaitanya says, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects.
Dakle, poniznijet ramke
to
novac
others.
i napustiti svaki lažni ugled, svakome
It's
odati
interesting. You're
poštovanje.
standing. It's just kind of interesting getting used to it, you know.
Mislim da ne trebaš više.
Ja isto mislim da je okej.
It's okay?
No,
okay.
not yet, not yet. Not yet. But it's just interesting, you know. I've never had that happen before, so like that.
Sorry. I can do like this. So.
No, whatever it is, it's just an unusual thing for me.
Like a tree, like a tree.
Like a tree.
Actually, I remembered I read Transcendental Diary. Prabhupada was sitting on the Manhattan Temple
Yeah.
with few disciples, and there was a sun and I think Chavana Swami or someone stood up to block the sun.
Yeah.
And I just got inspired.
Yeah, it's good. I mean,
To do
it's
some
good.
service.
It's good. It definitely helps. Otherwise, I couldn't see anybody.
I think that Surya wants to hear you also. So he's attracted
Surya.
by your speech.
If he was attracted, he would calm down a little bit. So,
He's shining more.
shining more.
Please.
So, what else? What other questions do we have?
Sad meni svijetli.
But you're looking there.
You look at it.
What's
So,
your favorite part from Bhagavad Gita?
favorite part of Bhagavad Gita?
Najdraži dio Bhagavad Gita.
6th chapter,
6. poglavlje,
text 30.
tekst 30.
Yomam pashati sarvatra sarvam chamayi pashati tashaham na pranashami sachame na pranashati. You know those?
Onaj ko svuda vidi mene.
You know the
He
translation of it?
knows everything.
Okay, give the translation.
Onaj ko svuda vidi mene, sve vidi u mene, nikada za mene nije izgubljen, niti sam ja ikada izgubljen za njega.
There you go.
When I need to remember some verse, I just join us, please. What's
He
the
knows
verse?
all the verses.
He knows a lot.
Well, now I'm red in my face.
Nemoj se crveni.
Means, you know, one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me is never lost to me, never lost. I've never lost to him. So that's a really important verse.
To
So,
je vrlo bitan stih.
in other words, it means more than just seeing little Krishnas everywhere. It means
To znači više nego
seeing Krishna in
vidjeti malog
everyone's
Krishnu
heart, everyone
posvuda,
connected.
već vidjeti na koji način je sve povezano.
I can connect that with another verse
To bih povezao s drugim
in the
stihom.
Isopanishad. Let's see if you know this one.
Pa mi sad je drugi stih, neki.
Number 6 in the Isopanishad.
Number 6. Maybe if you say first words of Sanskrit or something like that.
How does that start again? Let me just think for a second. I'll get the Sanskrit of that in a second.
I think that...
Patona Vigigupshate.
Oh. There is no fear for someone who sees...
No.
Oh, no, other
No, it's not that one. One who sees me everywhere and sees and everything in me does not hate anyone or hate anything.
No, ona osoba koja vidi mene posvuda I sve vidi u meni, ne mrzi nikoga, niti nju iko mrzi.
Yeah. So in other words, if we see everything or everyone is connected to each other through Krishna,
Kada vidimo kroz Krišnu da je svatko povezan kroz
then how
Krišnu,
can we
da je
hate
svatko s
anybody?
drugim povezan, da su svi međusobno povezani,
then we actually experience our connection with each other
onda
in the same
možemo
way.
osjećati konekciju, vidjeti konekciju s drugim živim bićima, vidjevši da su svi povezani u Krišni. Onda se I mi možemo povezati s drugim osobama na taj način. Vidjevši da su
It's
svi
a very beautiful verse, and I just forgot the Sanskrit.
To je divan stih, jednostavno zaboravio sam trenutno sanskrit.
Yeah, so I connect that with 6:30 in the Gita,
To povezujem sa stihom 6.30.
which pretty much says the
Bhagavad
same
Gita.
thing. So I try to remember that, how we're all connected. I mean, they're all living entities.
Mi smo svi živa bića.
Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Devihastani. Shunachaiva Swapakicha Pandita Samadarsha. That's Gita, of course, again.
Da. Bhagavad Gita, dakle, govori taj stih da učena osoba vidi učenog I plemenitog brahmanu, kravu, slona, psa I čovjeka koji jede pse vidi jednakim očima.
Yeah, he knows.
Mislim,
He's good.
to su osnovne.
This is first grade.
Those are basic.
Even I know.
Those are basic.
Who knows? Who don't know that?
Everybody knows that verse, yeah.
Well, Sundarananda granted me to give twice a week lectures, so I really try hard to prepare myself for those lectures. So
Good.
maybe I'm now in good shape.
Good.
Maybe.
And I also have a strategy to always prepare at least 2 or 3 verses, like I know this verse, but actually I'm preparing myself for the next lectures just to say these verses in Sanskrit language, but it seems like I know it, but actually I prepared myself to say those verses in the next lecture.
So now I remember the Sanskrit.
Okay.
Yastu sarvani bhutani Atman evanu pashati sarvabhuteshu charmanam todna bhigigupshate. You know that in Sanskrit?
Well, I know like 25%.
Okay. So basically it means the same thing, that one who sees everything and everyone in connection with Krishna, he doesn't hate anyone or hate anything. Almost gone.
Come closer.
Just want to say that there's prasadam for everyone.
Oh.
When you're done.
Okay. Is it vegetarian? Okay.
Vegan.
Vegan, yeah, oh my God. You're fanatic. Well, I'm a vegan, so that's it. But I tell people they don't have to be, it's just...
Ja sam isto vegan, ne kažem da ljudi moraju biti, ali eto, ja sam isto vegan.
You know, just my personal choice out of compassion
Iz samilosti.
for animals.
But don't you think that cows lose their purpose? If,
Yes.
Smatraš li da...
Yes, oh yeah, I agree, the purpose of the cows. I'm not against milk, philosophically,
Filozofski nisam mlijeka,
but I'm against the way the cows are treated.
ali način na koji su krave tretirane, to je problem.
It's like basically concentration camp for cows.
To je
That's what a dairy is, you know. They take their calves away,
uzimaju
turn the calves into something called veal,
i onda ih odvoze nešto što
and they
što se
keep
zove-
them confined. They keep the little
boxes.
in little boxes,
u malim,
so the meat is very soft for the people and white meat.
dakle drži ih u tim
And it's
nekim
just like, I
malim
mean,
kućima.
I used to take care of cows, so I'm very connected to them.
Budući da sam sam brinuo
And
o
I actually
nepsredu za
delivered
krave neko
calves.
vrijeme, konektiran sam
You
s
know,
kravama i imam taj
I was a
osjećaj za njih.
Nurse. No, no. You know, I actually pull the calf out of the mother. Help do that. So I really know intimately about cows.
Dakle,
And,
oni uzimaju tu telad od
I used to
krave.
have a pet cow.
Ne, on je otelio
On je
kravu.
Pardon. Dobro, okej. Čak sam imao
I used to-
i kravu ljubimce sam
I used to have a pet cow, and she would just like call her by name, and if I wanted to milk her, she would just stand there.
po imenu i ja sam...
And it was just, you know, the
uzeo.
relationship
Ona
that a
bi
human being can make with a cow is amazing.
To je zapanjujuće
I
kakav
mean,
odnos može s kravom imati.
They're also therapeutic. Like people go hug cows.
Čak ima i
If
terapeutski
they have some
učinak.
psychological problem, they can
Netko
actually
ima
overcome a
psihološke
psychological
probleme,
problem
ako
because the
zagrli
cows are in
kravu,
the mode
može
of
se liječiti
goodness
na taj način.
more than any other animal. Some people use
Više nego-
horses because horses have big hearts, but cows
Isto
we
ima velika
find
srca, ali krava
are
isto
much
tako.
more empathic animals.
Krava je vrlo
so-
suosjećana životinja.
So I saw the connection between the mother cow and the calf,
Vidio sam...
very strong connection. So
dakle,
even
postoji ta snažna povezanost između
even
krave-
when we had to take the calf away so we could milk the cow, they both were screaming and yelling.
Dakle, ako pokušate odvojiti
You know,
telad,
the mother would just scream. So we had to do like they do in the
plače i
Vedic
krava
times,
telad.
is
Ako
tie
pokušate
the
pomesti
calf by
kravu,
the
a odvojiti telad.
head of the mother. And then the mother was very happy, as long as she could lick the calf. So it's, to me, because of my
Možeš 5
experience,
minuta pred dvojicom
it's
da
very
rade, ja sam
painful
umro.
to see a situation.
Ajde, da ćete zamijeniti.
Yeah, you don't have to stand. It's all right. Sun's not there. Sun's not there.
I'm just asking I'm a little tired of translation, just...
Oh, yeah, he can translate.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so it's actually very painful for me knowing about cows and calves to feel that I'm responsible for something like that. You know, so I have nothing against milk. You know, I think milk is great. You know, I agree with Prabhupada what he said, but to feel that I'm responsible for some mistreatment of animals like that is very hard. So it's not a philosophical argument, it's a emotional argument. So I don't try to convince anyone else of it. But it's, you know, these animals, they suffer. I've seen animals suffer. I mean, when I was young, my brother would go fishing, And when you catch a fish, you know, they just flop around. They're in extreme pain. So I became a vegetarian way before Krishna consciousness. As soon as I realized that meat came from animals, the funny thing is that people don't realize that, or they don't do a connection. What happens one day, my mother made something for me for dinner, and I walked in the kitchen, and I said, "What's for dinner?" And she said, "Tongue."
What she said?
Tongue.
Yes.
And I looked at it, and it looked just like the tongue in my mouth. And I was so shocked. I said to her, "I'm not taking meat anymore," just by that experience. So I tend to react emotionally to things like that. So if I'm a vegan, it's because of that emotional response, which is not a philosophical thing. Many devotees try to talk to me philosophically about it, but it's not a philosophical issue. It's a heart issue rather than a philosophical issue. And I love cows. If I'm in India and I see someone taking care of their own cow, and I know the cow's in the family, and they offer me a little bit of buttermilk or something, I will certainly take it. Because the cow is given out of love. But when there's this exploitation and they attach these machines to the cows, it's because I used to hand milk cows, and there's a whole relationship there when you do that. Like if you don't have good consciousness when you're hand milking a cow, the cow won't give you the milk. It's a funny thing. The cow will just say, "No, you're not getting milk." Because it has to be based on relationship. They have to trust you. So anyway, so in the commercial dairies, I don't know why we started speaking about this, but anyway, in the commercial, because we talk about veganism, in the commercial dairies, they just like use a machine to suck out from the cows. Anyway, sorry about that.
It's very relevant because we are dealing also with people who know all these things, and if we are oblivious about it, then we are not relevant to them as Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So we have to be consistent. Otherwise, even as far as reaching out to people, sometimes we may appear to be hypocritical. They come to the temple and here's all this halva, sweet rice, and everything like that. In our temple in the United States, we have milk from protected cows. I want to say that. We made a deal with a farmer that he'll protect the cow and the calf for the rest of their lives. But we're paying 5 times the amount normal price for milk. So he'll do that. Because that's the true price of milk. If you protect the cow and the calf. It's about 5 times of that.
Sundarananda also has the deal with this kind of the farm.
Not me, but we have Dira Samira. He's a disciple of Krishna Goswami. He's a vet doctor.
Right.
And professor also on vet university. And he has a small farm which we support.
Mm-hmm.
And he keeps few cows with love. And also just hand milking.
Mm-hmm.
And he brings the milk products for our restaurant.
Very nice.
And I was with him because Kakudmi also has some project.
Mm-hmm.
And Kakudmi couldn't keep the cow. So I managed with Dira Samira that he takes the cow. But he told me, no, I first have to see if we can relate to each other. So I bring him there. And he approached to the cow. And they start to exchange. And he took the ordinary bottle, it's small. And she allowed him to take milk from her in this bottle. She was so peaceful. And then he took her to his farm. Ahimsa milk.
Ahimsa milk. Non-violent milk. Yeah, it's a question of relationships with animals. So it's...
Like with the people.
Like with people. It's just a question of connection and relationships.
all living beings.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important to have relationships with the animals too.
Važno je da ljudi uspostave tako odnose sa životom.
So, any other questions?
Ima li još pitanja? Tema. We don't want to squeeze you totally.
No, that's the reason. I'm enjoying myself.
Then wonderful. Okay?
Yeah, I'm open.
Be encouraged. Maharaj kaže da uživa. Tako slobodno.
It's just nice to see everybody.
Nice to see you.
I haven't seen Bhakti for a while, Madhuri for a while, none of us for a while. Just remarking how healthy you look. Because I've seen you when you haven't been really healthy. You know, you look like you're ready to go back to Godhead. Look like you're ready to play football or something like that. Oh no, you're playing football. Oh, basketball actually.
Yeah.
Because he's tall enough for basketball.
Yeah, but still there are challenges with the weaknesses.
Yeah.
How long will you stay here in Slovenia?
I'm here in Slovenia until the 4th of July. On the 5th of July, I'm flying to Germany. 4th of July, we have a program in, actually, we have a program in the temple. We're initiation, 5 initiations.
And Guru Maharaj, how you relate with this new order in the world, and what is your prediction?
Which order?
You mean
ISKCON order?
COVID situation.
COVID pandemia.
I've lost some people because of COVID. My dear godbrother Bhakti Chumarj I lost. He was very close to me. And some devotees in Mayapur we lost because of COVID. Personally, my opinion is that people take care of their health better, they won't have such a big problem with COVID. I mean, I have different opinions about COVID itself, that, people have proper levels of vitamin D and other things in their system. There'll be less problems. But people nowadays are nutritionally deficient in many ways, don't take care of the health, don't get exercise, a number of reasons. So I think they're more vulnerable to COVID. That's on one angle. Another angle looking at COVID is it's a zoonotic disease. Zoonotic means it came from animals. Because people were raising animals. If you look at even the Spanish flu, that's also zoonotic. And there's been the chicken flu and all sorts of these different flus, and even AIDS. That's zoonotic too. AIDS first came about, according to the research, because people were eating monkey brains.
Raw.
Not raw. I don't know if they were eating raw. I never raw. Yeah, I didn't. I never checked it out. Oh my God, that's pretty bad. So.
They still do this.
Where?
Još uvijek to
Where?
rade.
Još uvijek to rade.
Everywhere.
Dijelovi Afrike. In parts of Africa.
In parts of Africa.
U dijelovima.
So you find, I would say most of these pandemics, if not all the pandemics, came because of people's improper interactions with animals. If you see when they raise animals for slaughter, here, of course, we're talking about bats. Some people say it escaped from a laboratory, but originally it was from bats. Even if it escaped from a laboratory, originally it's from bats. So when scientifically, because my foundation is in science, so scientifically, if you enclose a lot of animals, whether it's chickens or bats or whatever, an enclosed space, and treat them harshly, their immune system goes down. They develop all these diseases. And eventually, these diseases can jump to human beings and then be carried from one human being to another. It's as simple as that. And you'll find these pandemics, that's how they come from. So ultimately, it's from eating animals, eating and raising animals for slaughter. But people are not ready to face that. Just like they're not ready to face the fact that most of the global warming could be eliminated if people eat a vegetarian diet. I mean, like you have the majority of the Amazon forest being chopped down. I mean, this is known fact. So that people can raise beef for places like McDonald's and other places like that. But people won't face the facts that they have to change their diet or change their lifestyle. And they want to deal with the disease, not in a preventative way, but in a curative way, after the disease occurs. So COVID is just going to be one of a series of what we call zoonotic diseases. And I think we're going to see more of them in the future. Now, whether COVID mutates, which it already has, we may have to live with it for several years, like the flu. That's how the flu started, too. So we may have to live with it, and there may be more diseases coming. I mean, these are results of modern society and exploitation of animals. And that's the way I generally see it. Now, as far as I see what's going to happen in the future with the world, I think people are just going to start living with all these different diseases. I think after a while they're not going to be able to restrict people. I mean, it's going to get too crazy. Like in America, they were able to do it for some time, and I think Croatia for some time. But after a while, people refuse to accept it. At least most people refuse to accept it. I know in India they're starting to refuse to accept it. So it's something that people will live with, people will die. And also another way of looking at it is that we're exploiting Mother Earth, and all these things that are happening are part of Mother Earth's immune system. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Gaia hypothesis, where the Earth is a living entity and we're actually invaders, we're the bacteria. So that's another angle of vision of the whole thing. And certainly we're going to be living with not only natural disasters too, global warming. There's some countries that are disappearing right now in the Pacific because of the rise of the sea levels. We just heard about, because of indirect connection with global warming, there was a big condominium in Miami where hundreds of people died. I don't know if you heard about that. Apartment building right near the beach in Miami. And the water actually ate away at the foundation and different things like that, and it collapsed. And you had over 100 people they can't find.
What happened?
The building collapsed. Half the building collapsed. And the big apartment building.
Yeah, I just saw this picture.
And, they say there's 9 or 10 people dead, but there's 100 people they can't find. So that means that 100 people died. So you're going to have, like, problems with the weather. And, I think things will probably get a little worse. And COVID is just like a little bit of it.
Just chant Hare Krishna.
Or, we could also be in favor of, like, ecology, and not exploiting animals and different things like that. I remember I was in Croatia, in Zagreb one time, and I visited. Were you there with me when I visited the headquarters? No, wasn't you?
Devarshi Narada was it.
Devarshi Narada.
The
headquarters of PETA.
Yeah, of the prijatelja životinja. Luka. And Luca's right hand, Alan, has become devotee.
Really?
Yeah.
Very nice. And I was very impressed with their determination.
Yeah. They did so many wonderful things.
Yeah.
For changing the laws
and the consciousness of people, yeah.
And a lot of vegans are, growing the population of vegans in Croatia too.
Yeah, I appreciated their efforts and their determination. Like that. So I think that there'll be many people thinking in a similar way. And also there'll be many opportunities for reaching out to people in Krishna consciousness, because people are going to see that the world isn't so stable anymore. I've experienced that in America. People saw that, things were falling apart because everybody was so economically secure, and then everything started to fall apart because of COVID. And people becoming more receptive. the world starts crumbling, I think it's an ideal situation for presenting Krishna consciousness. Because people are looking for security, people are in difficulty. So there's an opportunity. I mean, I found a great opportunity in reaching out to people through the internet more than any other time. I'm dealing with more people now than I've ever dealt with before because of the internet.
Because of the internet, I don't feel separate from you.
Yeah.
Because I can see you
Every day I'm on.
Twice.
Twice a day I'm on the internet, the Kirtans, the seminars.
Yes.
We have the Gita, we have the Chaitanya Charitamrita class every day when I'm in America. Not for 2 weeks while I'm here in Europe, but and so I find it a more positive environment, not a materially positive environment, but I find that people are just more open to different things. At the same time, there's more of divisiveness in society. You got people who are angrier. Every country I've been in is like that. You got very angry people who are, ready to destroy. In America in particular, we discovered that. We almost had a revolt against the government on January 6th. I'm sure you read about that. Something we've never had for the last 200 years in America. So I think it's conflicts. There's going to be more conflicts in the world. Hopefully there won't be any atomic conflicts. That would be the worst thing. And there's going to be more upheavals, but there's more opportunity for presenting Krishna consciousness in any circumstance. So I just think we have to be flexible, whatever the situation is. And think, as we say in English, think outside the box. Be inventive and just doing things. And personally I feel happy. I'm not worried. I'm not worried because I'm fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, and I'm happy. I'm dealing with people. And if everything gets taken away, then it's all right. As long as we have the internet. As long as that doesn't get taken away. That would be a disaster. Then I'll cry or something like that.
Then we will relearn the handwritings.
Yeah, I can't. The funny thing is, people sometimes give me books now, and I don't know what to do with the book. Because I use electronic books, like Kindles and things like that. It's a book. What am I supposed to do with it? How do you turn the pages? Because I'm so accustomed to the electronic. But we can learn.
And he starts scrolling through the book.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through the book.
Why does it move?
Yeah, you touch the book. What's happening with the book? It's not working.
I remember when Prabhupada wrote more than 4,000 letters.
Yeah.
And when he would write to some disciple letter, then everyone would gather and they would
read the letter.
The letter.
It was like that anytime, anywhere in the world, someone got a letter. We'd call the other person and hear the letter that Prabhupada wrote. That's how central. It was an amazing time. Every letter from Prabhupada was very precious to us. But Prabhupada used technology. I mean, his letters were typewritten. Yeah, either dictaphone or he dictated to his secretary or wrote himself on a typewriter. Prabhupada was the first one to use not just computers. He used a dictaphone. He used what other thing did he use? And I know he used some other technology. Oh, tape recorder.
Tape recorder.
Prabhupada was one of the first things he did when he went to New York was to buy a tape recorder. The old reel-to-reel type tape recorders. So Prabhupada was very much into using technology for Krishna service. I was with Prabhupada one time, and we showed Prabhupada a computer that we got for typesetting books. I was standing right next to Prabhupada. And then we showed Prabhupada a teletype machine. I don't know if you know what a teletype machine. It was before there was a fax. It was like a typewriter that you could type something and would type something else 1,000 kilometers away.
Telegraph.
Yeah, not exactly a telegraph, it's called a teletype. Yeah. And so Prabhupada looked at it, and then he said to us, he said, all this is useless unless you can produce 17 books in 2 months. Because we were behind in the production. I was working for the Prabhupada's BBT book production at that time, and we were behind 17 books. From Prabhupada had translated 17 books, and we were behind 17 books. And the devotees told Prabhupada, he said, that's impossible. And Prabhupada said, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. And then we did it. We actually printed, had the paintings painted, typeset, and everything. 17 hardbound books this thick. The whole Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Each 300, 400 pages.
Yeah, 300-400 pages. The whole Chaitanya Charitamrita and the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. All within 2 months' time. Because we worked 24 hours a day, and it was the most blissful experience I've ever had. Because everyone was just like, it was like teamwork. Everybody worked together. I sometimes cooked prasadam for all the devotees, because we were all up all night long, 24 hours a day for like 2 months. And it was fun. It was fun. So, anyway, so Prabhupada used, if it was useful, he used modern technology. All right. It's getting cold. I'm not cold.
Maharaj, I have a practical question.
Yeah.
Can you request Radha Raman to show devotees the house?
Yeah.
Because it's interesting.
Yeah, why not?
Radha Raman. Radha Raman. Radha Raman. Možeš Bhaktama pokazati kuću malo? Onima koji nisu vidjeli, ja neću uzeti pridat prosto. Baš je fora da vidim.
Od Guru Maharaj.
Da.
No, it's his house, not my house.
Yeah, I know. That's your house now.
Well, yeah, but I'm not there now.
In use of.
Yeah, I mean, they just give me one tiny bedroom.
Guru Maharaj?
What?
Bring your deities.
Yeah, you can see my deities. They're in the kitchen.
Okay.
They're in the kitchen. So if you go in the house, you'll see them.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So much.
Thank you very much.
We'll let you go on a tour of the house first. Okay, Madhuri. Good to see you. Yeah, they're not going to stay all night.
He said, Ops, ovdje su neka pitanja isto. Pozdrav svima iz Površja, Slovenija. Još malo ovako da pokažemo ambijent. Op. Do neki sljedeći put. Pozdrav, Hare Krishna.